So obviously, a lot of the conversations, the media coverage this week has been about the revelations that Pete Hegseth essentially engaged in extrajudicial killings of fishermen in the Caribbean, right? You bomb the boat, there's a couple survivors, you say, screw it, bomb them again. That is a war crime. And the legal experts here in the United States, there is no real argument between them that, yeah, this is in fact a war crime. But here's the thing. Pete Hegseth has nothing to worry about, with the exception of maybe the International Criminal Court, which I do hope and I think they might eventually come after him. At that point, he's got a problem. But in terms of facing justice here in the United States, it'll never happen. And the reason for that is Donald Trump will just pardon him. Donald Trump will pardon anyone and everyone from his administration. Nothing that they do, we will be able to hold them accountable for. That's a sad reality, but it's a reality nevertheless. It may not be what you want to hear, but it is the truth. Our justice system will never be able to hold any of these people accountable. End of story, period. They're going to get away with all of it. And you all, we have to understand that. We don't have to accept it, but we have to accept it, you know? This is a situation where we are, in fact, powerless. Let me read you this because there was a great op-ed in USA Today this week by reporter Dace Potas. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name, but let me read you what he wrote. Let me pose a not so far-fetched hypothetical. What if Trump pardons everyone in his administration? What motivation is there among his loyal goons to not rampantly violate the rule of law on his behalf? This is exactly the sort of scheme that seems increasingly likely to happen as the president takes more and more reckless action with the pardon power. Trump has set the pretextual argument for it, the fact that he needs to protect his administration and himself from vengeful prosecution by congressional Democrats. Likewise, former President Joe Biden has given Republicans the ammunition to justify it through his ridiculous preemptive pardons right before he left office. Now, I disagree that Biden's pardons were ridiculous. He was, in fact, trying to protect people because Trump would have made their lives hell. Yeah, maybe you disagree with that. Fine, that's your opinion. I have mine. He has his. But he is correct about that did set the precedent. And Trump will pardon all his people. He will pardon himself. He might even throw a couple at his kids just for good measure. So none of them will ever be held accountable. And in fact, knowing that a pardon is waiting for you in the wings actually gives you an incentive to break the law. So Trump has basically, with a wink and a nod, given his administration permission, go ahead and break the law. It doesn't matter for us anyway. So what do we do? What do we do about a situation where we are completely powerless? We change the situation. The only way to stop this from happening, the only way to have real accountability, is to remove the pardon power from the President of the United States. That is something that through the, right channels, either legislation or perhaps a constitutional amendment, can happen, right? Nothing in this country is actually set in stone. There are mechanisms in place, albeit they're very difficult to activate, but there are mechanisms in place to change things. And that's what we have to demand. The President of the United States pardonability has to be either curtailed tremendously or removed. I'm fine with removing it in its entirety. But at the very least, it has to be altered to prevent a president from, one, pardoning themselves, two, pardoning any member of their cabinet. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the only pardon power a president of the United States should have is this. If there is an individual that has been tried, convicted, and sentenced, at that point, then the president can pardon that individual as long as there were no ties to the actual administration. But up until then, a pardon should not be allowed. A pardon should not be legal. Because technically, those who accept a presidential pardon lose certain constitutional rights. They no longer have a Fifth Amendment right with anything regarded to what they got pardoned for. So people who accept a pardon before they've even been tried or even, charged are voluntarily giving up their constitutional rights. And I don't think that's okay. And I think that's actually a pretty good argument to throw back in their faces. But if we do not amend this power, all of these people get away with it from here to eternity. And not just these people, maybe the next people, maybe the people after that. Maybe we end up eventually over time with an entire nation that's just pardoned from everything and every whatever. The president literally could do that. Like Donald Trump could issue an order right now giving a pardon to every single person in the United States retroactive to the day they were born. Just a clean slate for everybody. He can do that. He has the authority to do that. You don't think that a president should not be able to do that, right? Maybe when we look at it in those grandiose ways that he literally could do that crazy action, maybe that will help enough people understand that this pardon power, a little too broad, a little too vague, and certainly in the hands of the wrong person right now. Scientists recently discovered a new evolutionary trait in puppies, and it's that they cannot grow up and reach their full potential unless you subscribe to this channel. Don't do it for me, folks. Do it for little Atlas and Judge here. Good boys. You do good. You want to say something? No? Okay.